How's it going? So just imagine for a sec that we live in a world that's completely dictated by online interaction. The world we live in is completely devoid of physical face-to-face interaction. So you're probably familiar with the movie Ready Player One. It came out 2 years ago, and in that movie, much of the same reality exists, where the majority of the characters in the movie interact primarily online through virtual reality, and the real physical world is actually not that fascinating. So the reason why I'm bringing up all these things now is because 2020 so far, it seems like we're heading in that direction, heading into a world that's completely virtual, that's completely online. Think about it for a sec. The majority of our interaction is through video conferencing calls via Zoom, and there's no exception for online classes either, because nowadays classes are all online. So if you recall, in my previous video, I talked a little bit about how online classes are just not effective as regular in-person traditional classes. But I didn't really go into the details as to why I believe that. So in this video, I just kind of wanted to touch on more of the details as to why I think online classes are just not on the same level as regular in-person classes. So the first thing that comes to my mind when I think about online classes is versatility. You can take online classes from virtually anywhere. You can take it from the comfort of your own home if you choose to do so. And of course, that seems great. Who wouldn't love to take online classes from the comfort of their own home? But of course, there are caveats attached to it. So for example, in my case, I'm currently taking online classes from the comfort of my own home. But here's a common scenario that seems to happen every single time I'm in a class. Oh damn, I got a Zoom meeting. It's only recitation, I'm not gonna go. Alright, time to go on TikTok. See what's going on.
Of course.
You get the point. Basically, when a class isn't required or isn't as significant to me, I decide that I'm not going to go to the class. Instead, I decide that I'm going to go through my phone or do something that's completely unproductive. And it's even worse when the class is asynchronous, when the class doesn't have live lectures and the professor usually just posts videos for you to watch throughout the week. In those situations, I don't even get around to watching the videos. I usually just end up cramming last minute if there's a quiz associated with those videos. So you see how this whole online situation just kind of becomes a domino effect. You just run into a lot of problems. Of course, there's also the struggle of your family members blatantly interrupting you while you're in the middle of class. Hi. But that's not the only problem. This is another scenario that happens frequently to me.
Just like any other operators, like addition and subtraction.
Oh man, this Zoom meeting is so boring.
Okay. They spit out the result back. Now let's start by declaring a simple variable r, and that will hold the result.
Okay, time to end this meeting. I'm sick of this shit, man. And of course, all of these different issues just start to pile on top of one another. But I guess one of the main reasons why online classes are just not as effective is because of my lack of motivation. During in-person classes, I used to have a lot more motivation, but now all of that is just down the drain. Now, students are just focused on getting the work done, getting the assignments in. They're not focused on actually learning the material. Their only focus is to hand in the assignment before the 11:59 deadline. But if it was in person, I feel like I would actually be interested in learning more about the material because the professor is right in front of me teaching. And of course, if I didn't understand something, I would be able to ask my classmates sitting right next to me, or I could even ask the professor right after class. Now, of course, I would be able to do this online by unmuting myself on the Zoom call and ask the professor that way. But I feel like oftentimes it's just a lot more awkward via online as opposed to in person. It's similar to going to a movie theater to watch a movie. When you're in the theater, you're rarely on your phone because you don't want to distract anyone, disturb anyone watching the movie. But that's different from when you're at home watching a movie, because when you're at home, you're surrounded by a lot more distractions and you're more likely to be interrupted. So I can go on and on about how online classes are just really limiting. Of course, you're not on campus, you're not hanging out with your friends that you're used to on a daily basis, your social circle is very limited, you're feeling isolated. There's a lot more at stake with online classes. But it's something that all of us need to learn to adapt to until things get normal, no matter how hard it is. So I talked a lot about how online classes are limiting, but I didn't really provide a lot of details on how we can work to make sure that our online experience is better. So the first thing I usually like to do before the week starts is to usually create some sort of a task agenda or study agenda for the week of things that I need to accomplish. Of course, this tactic is great even for regular classes, but it's even more crucial during an online semester, since you can get so caught up in other work and you oftentimes lose track of what you need to get done. Something else I think that's very useful during online classes is scheduling certain blocks of time to complete certain tasks. So for example, if you have an exam coming up for one of your classes, but at the same time you have another assignment that's due for another class perhaps, but the assignment is due at a later date than the exam, and you know for a fact that you haven't studied for the exam, and maybe set aside a couple of hours, 2 to 3 hours, studying for the exam and just going through all the topics, all the key points that were mentioned in lecture for the exam. And after you've done that, maybe switch gears and start working on the assignment with periodic breaks in between and keep going back and forth. During online classes, it's also very easy to be isolated with your own work and just get caught up in so many other things. That's exactly the reason why I make an active effort to keep in touch with my friends. And of course, it seems pretty self-explanatory, but the thing is, when you're on campus, you usually run into your friends either at the library or the dining halls or the learning centers or somewhere on campus, or even probably perhaps in your own classes. But when you're online, it's just different in the sense that you really don't have physical interaction with anyone. So that's why a simple phone call to a friend, or even a simple message or a Zoom session, any of those would really help in probably bettering your environment as well as theirs. Obviously, during online classes, it's very easy to be distracted and lose focus or interest in something. But I think one of the biggest keys to success in online classes is actually keeping interest and keeping focus in the subject at hand. So to avoid distractions, what I usually like to do is to enable something called Zen mode on my phone, which basically ensures that all notifications and calls are blocked, and it only enables emergency phone calls on my phone. So that way I can actually ensure that I get my work done and actually try to focus on what's happening. Last but not least, I think the most important piece of advice to keep in mind for online classes is to actually take care of ourselves. Because, I said it before and I'll say it again, online classes are really draining in the sense that they can make us feel isolated and we can be so caught up in our own work and really have not a lot of space for social interaction. So I think it's more important than ever that we actually take the time to rewind and just relax for a bit and even meditate if you have to. Because honestly, those little things can add up and it can really make a huge difference in performance when it comes to online classes. Online classes are just something that we as students have to deal with no matter how much we don't like them until the world returns to some sense of normality. Anyways, thanks for making it to the end of the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.